that the publicity surrounding this case for years did not play a role both in the charging, in the prosecution, and in the verdict. I'm not going to criticize the judge. There are many, many issues that I believe were decided in error, but that's not for me to decide. That's going to be either for the Connecticut Appellate Court or the Connecticut Supreme Court. And I'll also just say this. For years, Michelle has said, I don't think I can get a fair trial here in Stamford. You know, she doesn't use the word pillory, but that's the equivalent. She felt like she was being pilloried publicly, people condemning her, just like we heard today, people who don't know her, people basically making things up, a narrative that does not exist in the record. And I kept saying, no, you got to sort of trust in the system. We'll do our motions, we'll make a motion to transfer the case, we'll do this, we'll do that. Well, you know, I'm not going to, I can no longer say that she didn't have a good reason to think that this was not a fair process. She was saying this is like in Venezuela. I don't know the system in Venezuela. All I can say is I've been doing this a long time, and there were a lot of irregularities that occurred here that have not occurred anywhere else, not only in this state, but in any other court. And I've practiced law in other places of the United States. And I once even attended a trial in what was then West Germany. And I thought, gee, they don't have a lot of rules that apply to the defense there. It sort of seems the same here. So the next step is an appeal. The notice of appeal will be filed in the next couple of weeks. When that gets decided, again, it's not up to me. It's going to be the process of preparing thousands and thousands of pages of transcript. We're going to go challenge everything from the decision to keep the case here. We're going to challenge the fact that when we filed for a speedy trial in September, we didn't get a trial till January. Those are just a few. Those are just a couple of the things that I believe are grounds for reversal, not to mention that I still believe there was not sufficient evidence presented to prove that Michelle knew anything about what Fotis Dulos was planning with his wife. And for that reason, I believe that an insufficiency of the evidence grounds for appeal is one of the things that will be presented. So if you have any questions.
Can you talk about the irregularities, like in more detail?
Well, it's going to take me 20 minutes to go through them. Everything from allowing an evidence of what I call junk science, this fake notion that you spray something and it glows, that means that it's blood. That is false. It is absolutely false junk science that was allowed in multiple times. Jury was apparently allowed to infer that everything that was that glowed was blood. So again, that's one example. Not allowing me to present, when I put in evidence, a document proving that the Chevy Suburban was moved and someone connected Jennifer Dulos' phone to it at 2:56 in the afternoon of May 24th, when we know that Fotis Dulos was back in Hartford. I was not allowed to show it to the jury for more than 13 seconds, and I've never heard of such a thing. You present evidence. If you present evidence, you're allowed to show it to the jury. If it takes 20 minutes to show it or an hour, you're allowed to do it, either show it or read it. So those are the kind of things that I suggest were irregularities.
At the time, she demonstrated tears and visibly shaken at some of the statements made on her behalf. Did you not advise your client to at least apologize to the children, the family, the mother? And why has she demonstrated absolutely no remorse and even saying where possibly Michelle's body is?
Well, first of all, that question presumes that she has any clue about where Jennifer Dulos is at this time, where her body is, or what happened to her physically. So why would anyone disclose something that they don't know? So I challenge the very premise of that question. And as far as showing remorse, if you didn't commit the crime, then what kind of remorse do you expect a person to do? I'm sorry that I didn't commit a crime. I'm sorry that I was lied to. I'm sorry that I got it. She did say, she expressed remorse that she ever got involved with Fotis Dulos. And that is actually the only crime that I can see was shown during this trial.
John, what was Michelle's first response to Judge Randolph's decision today?
Well, she was devastated, but considering that she could have gotten as much as 45 years, 14 and a half years, is on the lower side. It's still a lot of time. I don't know, just standing here, whether that, someone smarter than myself will have to tell you whether a conspiracy charge is a 50% parole or an 85% parole. If it was the underlying crime of violence, it's 85%. I just don't know right now how the department treats it. So I can't answer that question. But, we expect that any appeal, any sentence review, all of those things will be decided well before she even gets close to anything like 25%, let alone 50%.
Can you talk about her decision in wanting to speak to the court today?
It was completely up to Michelle whether she was going to do that or not. Quite frankly, I'm not sure it would have mattered, but she is the one who wanted to speak. And those were her words. Those certainly weren't my words. And they weren't Attorney Felson's words. You want to say something?
Yes.
All right.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if you're done.
Step.
Folks, so.
Yeah, I guess if there's no other questions, I know that Cloudy wants to speak.
Hello, everyone. So this sentencing is still hard to digest. There was insufficient evidence to convict Michelle, and there was indeed various legal flaws in this process. Both families have suffered endlessly. The only thing we know for sure is that Fotis Dulos killed Jennifer, and Michelle Troconis had absolutely nothing to do with it before, during, or after Fotis murdered Jennifer. Michelle would never be capable of harming anyone, and I hope the world now knows, with numerous testimonials you heard affirming her caring nature. Both women were misled by Fotis Dulos, who deceived them for his own gain. We will continue to seek justice, and we're committed to fighting for her rights. The children and family deserve to know the truth. Thank you. Can you spell your name for me? Claudia, C-L-A-U-D-I-A, last name Troconis.
I'm just going to echo one thing. It is still my fervent belief that there was insufficient evidence to convict Michelle Troconis of knowledge about what Fotis Dulos was planning to do, despite what the friends of Jennifer Dulos said. She knows nothing about that. No evidence was presented that she knew anything about it. Therefore, in my view, this conviction was based upon emotion and speculation and allowing in totally irrelevant things under the guise that they all are mosaic parts of a puzzle, things that she knew nothing about and did nothing with. So,
How do you explain the evidence of the bloody bra and the bloody jacket? And where did it come from? And why was she riding around with it with Fotis Dulos?
well, again, your question presumes that she had X-ray vision and knew it was inside a black plastic bag that Fotis Dulos picked up out of the rear of a pickup truck and threw in a trash barrel. So when you ask, what is she doing riding around with with bloody clothes? That's a false premise of a question. It's, what was she doing riding around with Fotis Dulos? He told her they were going for coffee. That is the actual evidence that was presented.
The judge in his statement did say some of her DNA was found on Jennifer Farber's.
Well, that was an inaccurate statement. There was a partial familial DNA, 3 cells, 3 human DNA skin cells on the exterior of one of the bags. But there's no question that those bags probably came from the house that she lived in. And as was demonstrated during the trial, which you were obviously not at, that we demonstrated how when you reach into a plastic box of garbage bags, you hold on to one to pull out the next. And that, if anything, would explain how 3 cells got on there, not to mention transfer, that if she touched Fotis Dulos's hand and he touched the bag, that it would easily transfer 3 microscopic cells. So
You disagree that the prosecution said that her answering Fotis's phone that morning was evidence that she was going on. You disagree with that premise?
I certainly disagree with that. She is the one who told the police, I'm the one who answered the phone. If she was trying to hide something, why would she bring that up? Why would she even say it if she thought that that was somehow incriminating? Because Kent Mawhinney was in that house. You see his vehicle pulling in. He's there at the time that that call comes in. Kent Mawhinney's trial is going to be coming up at some point. Maybe you should ask his lawyer those questions as well, since he told the police he never saw Michelle that morning in the house when he was there. So, you know, you can ask him or his lawyer those questions.
John, how does today's decision affect or impact or set up or lay the groundwork for Kent Mawhinney's trial?
I will note that except when I brought it up, Kent Mawhinney's name did not even arise during the course of this trial. It's almost like he didn't exist because it didn't fit the state's narrative. They wanted to blame Michelle for what Fotis Dulos did when there's obviously multiple people who were actually involved, who physically did things. Obviously, someone had Jennifer Dulos's phone at 2:56 p.m. and it linked by Bluetooth to Jennifer Dulos's vehicle. Who was that? How come there's no evidence? Not only is there no evidence, nobody bothered to even look into that. I'm the one who brought it out during the trial in the defense case. Nobody raised it.
Why did your client's story change so many times when she
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that question. I've already answered that. Her answers did not change multiple times. When you've been, and again, what media are you from? I see you just holding a cell phone.
don't worry about it?
Yeah, so I'm not going to worry about your question either. You've already gotten your 5 questions in.
How's Michelle doing? How's Michelle been taken to being in jail?
As you can see, she's lost weight. She's gotten gaunt. You know, you just can imagine how, first of all, she's in essentially solitary confinement because there aren't a lot of women in pretrial custody at York Correctional, right? She may be either 1 or 2 people total. So she's in a separate wing all by herself. And figure out you spend 24 hours a day by yourself, day after day, week after week. I'll just say this. In the case law and in the psychological essays that have been written, solitary confinement is a form of torture, right? And to that extent, it's certainly having an adverse impact on her mental health.
John, today you mentioned ineffective counsel, the previous attorney before you. Is that going to be part of your appeal at all?
Let me just say this. We are looking into whether or not a separate pleading as a habeas corpus can be brought on the issue of ineffective assistance of prior counsel. That's not necessarily something that would be done on direct appeal because I was precluded during the pretrial hearings on putting on that evidence, with the judge expressly ruling you have to bring it as a separate civil matter, as a habeas matter. So that's something that is being looked at separately. But again, that would travel along a parallel route to a direct appeal. Let's put it that way.
John, the state had said, I believe it was before the trial even started, that there were potentially other unnamed individuals that could be a part of all this, or what do you make of that?
Well, other than the people I mentioned in the courtroom, there is someone who was connecting to the Suburban, Jennifer Dulos' Suburban at 2:56 p.m. And you'll note, if that vehicle wasn't there all day. There's school buses that were there going back and forth in the morning and the afternoon. It's not on any school bus video. So when the Dulos, Farber Dulos Suburban ended up near Waveney Park, remains a mystery because there's no evidence of when it was dropped off there. But obviously someone connected to it, which means they turned it on at 2:56 p.m. and were in possession of that cell phone. Who that was, where that went, that's one of these mysteries, because we know Photostools at that point was back in the Farmington area. That's something the state agrees with. So we don't know how that happened, but there's obviously someone that's still down there. And who knows, maybe you should ask Kent Mawhinney's lawyer. Maybe you should ask Pavel Gumieni's lawyer. I don't know. Thank you.